Good night and welcome to Mindful. What's going on there? My camera seems to be doing its own thing. Good night and welcome to Mindful Live 389. I am your co-host Nathan Springer, joined by the lovely host Leora. Tell the people good night. You're not telling the people good night? No good night? Because she could see herself. She could see herself in some of the chats. Alright. Over there on YouTube, there seems to be some technical difficulties going on with the camera, as happens sometimes. Let's see if we could organize that and get that sorted. She makes a quick departure. Yeah, she does. Yeah, she does. She jump in, heat up the place, show the people the cuteness, and then she's out. Just trying to fix up some of these technical difficulties here. Yeah, Ronnie, the price per minute. You know how those divas and stars go? You can't just get them there on a whim. Ay, ay, ay. Camera decides to give trouble today. Now the audio decides to do its own thing. If it's not one, it's the other. Alright, good. Yes, welcome. Two names. What two names are those, Ronnie? Good night, Rose Petal Angel. And yes, we are on Mindful Live 389. And tonight, you know, we spoke about it briefly last week, but I have to bring this back up because I saw the conversation raging over social media all over the weekend, and the memes, oh yes, the memes were lovely. The memes were quite something. So I think there is some need, there is some use, some utility in revisiting the man versus bear discussion. Now, for those of you who don't know where the premise of this comes from, I believe a social media trend where they went around and they asked many women particularly, if you were lost in a forest, would you rather be lost with a man or a bear? A random man or a random bear. And many women chose the bear. And many people saw that as a testament to how dangerous the male species is regarding females. As proof positive that men in this world have so traumatized the women of this world that they would rather choose a dangerous apex predator than be in a forest alone with a man. And I've seen many people also, not just women. There are some men, the type, what was his name, Derek Jackson Jr. or something like that. That was his name. That type. There are many of those around, and they're out there saying that men aren't to be offended by this. Why are men so offended by this? You shouldn't be offended. You should be introspective. Ask yourself why. Why do women, or why would a woman choose a bear over you? It's not a time to be insulted. But I disagree. I think if in a sexually dimorphic species where man and woman coming together and making the babies is how we have been alive since we have been alive. In a species as such, for our core species to tell us they would rather go with the species enemy, because understand, in the biological context, an apex predator is your enemy. You're telling me you rather go with the enemy, you would feel safer with the enemy than feel safer with your core species. And that's not meant to be an insult. Like, I'm sorry, that's insulting. Me personally, I'm not insulted because someone already chose me. I didn't lose to a bear. But it is insulting. It is an insulting proposition. That is an insult. And to me, even if, good night Fabian King, even if we were to give credence that the fear is warranted, the fear of men is warranted, that's not something you could place on all men. If there are legitimately dangerous men out there, that's not something that the non-dangerous men can cure. That's not their duty. They don't cure that. But something with that bear exercise that I find also very telling is that I think many of the women who chose the bear very well know that they're making the bad choice. I think they know that that's a risky choice. But I think they also know it's not a real choice. And many people are willing to risk destruction just to prove a point. Joe says they just rather die quick than be tortured before they meet their demise. I guess they fear man that much. That's not the case though, because a bear is not going to kill you quick. A bear typically eats their prey alive. So it's not like you're going to have a quick painless death either way. And it's a ridiculous prospect that the average man is going to murder a woman. We have men in the chat here. How many, like, is your introduction to all men Criminal Minds? You do understand when we talk about men, we are talking about us. You man, you guy there with the beard. You know what you have inside of your briefs. You're a man. As a man, if you are walking through a forest somewhere and some random lady stumbles upon you, is your first thought murder and savagery? At least not me. I don't know if there are some different breed of men out there, but not me. I don't know. It doesn't make sense. Can't even tell some women good morning without them thinking you're a creepy guy. Yeah. And as I said, I believe that a lot of this is basically to make a point. They know very well that the bear is dangerous and may kill them, but they're willing to make it seem like they're willing to risk something just to prove a point. And to me, that's scary when you think that these people choose elections too. And y'all, I know this is going to be a controversial one. I am steeling myself to say it. Hot take. Hashtag hot take. This is why there are some places in the world where people are afraid to allow women to vote. If you are willing to choose the bear to prove a point, how you gonna vote? Because this is not a logical decision. This isn't a decision where they thought through. And between my father, brother, and all the men in my life, I think that a bear is safer than them. No, that's not true. Like, if you ask a woman, you're living in a village, your village has men and women, would you rather all the men in your village magically transform into bears? Would that make you feel safer in your village? Nobody believes that. That's not true. Nobody actually believes this. It's a point. It's to prove a point. And if you are willing to choose an apex predator just to prove a point, your reasonability in choosing is in question. Does someone disagree with that stand? Doesn't that bring into question your reasonability? Joyce says, I will run to the man, we not me and no bear. And yes, there are bad experiences because they are bad people. And people are the majority of what you're going to be around. Like, how many murders are there on beaches per year? I'm sure there are quite a few murders on beaches per year. And a murder on a beach doesn't cause the entirety of all the beaches to close down. But one shark attack on one beach and the whole coast close off. But sharks don't kill plenty people per year. Humans is kill more people than sharks per year. But look at humans on the beach and you ain't closing the beach for humans. Obviously not, because you don't understand statistics and probability. Ronnie says, bring back test the vote. I agree. I think this should be a question before people are allowed to vote. And if you choose the bear, they just turn you around and say, have a good day. They bring you in, you see a written exam. You are randomly spawned in a forest somewhere. You have the choice of a partner in escape. Your choices are a bear or a man. Which one do you choose? Bear? You just live in the country now. You don't bother this voting thing. You just live and let people take care of you, because we see that your reasoning, your faculties of reasoning And then here's another interesting thing with this bear. I think the bear choice has some interesting implications when you think about books like Beauty and the Beast, books like 50 Shades of Grey, and the fact that the book 50 and the movie 50 Shades of Grey was written by a woman, and the audience that consumed it was mostly women. So, is it that some of these women are choosing the bear because they really do like that tall, dark, and dangerous, tall, dark, hairy, and dangerous guy? Is it that's the attraction? Because then that would explain a lot. That would explain a lot. The bear is tall. They're usually dark, except for those polar bears. Burly, violent, always sleeping, don't really work much. I could see. Bears usually are picking up people out there. Have multiple child mothers. Fact. Temperamental, abusive. Ooh. The bear's a hot man. It all makes sense now. It all makes sense now. And you know, I wonder, with the shark being the topical one now, someone should go out there and switch it to sharks. Like, would people still have the feeling with sharks? Or is it that the bears won a propaganda war with the whole cuddly bear, teddy bear business, and that's why people chose bear? I wonder if you're in a dinghy out in the middle of the ocean and you could have a shark as a partner or a man as a partner, if people will choose sharks over men still. I wonder. They might. CJ Sober says the bear versus man argument had to do with the danger men pose to women currently and historically. I know exactly what it has to do with, but I'm saying it's illogical. Either way, it's illogical. Men pose a danger to men too. If I'm walking down the road and I see another man, in fact I see another black man, that is the person statistically that I am most likely to be killed by. But that doesn't mean that individually, that individual is most likely to harm me. It's an understanding of statistics. If as men and women we lived together for thousands of years, one-on-one in homes raising families under stressful situations, the idea that the most of abuses would happen between men and women is not exactly a shocking idea. It's just a matter of proximity. And it's something that I know many modern women, etc., don't like to hear. But oftentimes that feeling of danger is an exaggerated feeling. Men are at danger of violent crime more than women. We are the victims of violent crime more than women. The idea that random men are out there to advantage you every chance they get. That's not true. Yeah, Ronnie.
Good night.
Good night.
I just wanted to, because you remember comment on your thing, I don't know if you read it, on your staff Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it so disingenuous because these are the same ladies that will be like, oh, well, there's no real difference between men and women anyway. But then you're rather a bear than a man. Well, take your man, at least you have a chance of fighting him off because women could be just as strong as men anyway. I don't understand.
Good point. A good point. If men are just as strong as women, why would you not choose a man?
But even though I don't fully agree with, of course, even if you take a man, like you could take a man, even if you're not as physically strong as a man, you could certain places you might be able to hit and get away, blah blah blah. But what are you gonna do, baby? Like it makes no sense. None of it makes sense. Even if you end up in the bush with, oh gosh, he's a rapist. Who is this? Jason? I don't know. I forget myself. Even if you end up with Jason, right, in the forest, you know who I'm talking about, like Freddy vs. Jason, whatever. I don't even know if I said the right movie. You could still get away because you could defend yourself even if you can't do it.
Which statistics, CJ Subas? Which statistics exactly? Research? Because I have. Which statistics you're asking about? And random men cognizant of the fact that they can do whatever they want without consequences. Now, that's changing the parameters of the question again. Because at no point in time would a man be cognizant of that, because that's not a fact. Humans do not exist in a world where we could do things without consequences. That's not a reality that we live in.
But I mean, if they're talking about consequences, they have no consequences.
That's exactly the point I was going to make. So you're worried about if a man, I know the question was hypothetical, but that was not part of the hypothetical question that was put forward. But you're worried about if a man is going to behave. Yes, alone in the woods doesn't mean there are no consequences. There are murderers who killed people alone in the woods and got caught afterwards. Consequences, being alone isn't being bereft of consequences. But either way, you're worried about a man acting like there are no consequences, while a bear is going to do that anyhow. Do you think the bear is going to pause to think about the police? What are you talking about? Be logical. I'm trying to get you to be logical here. Do you think a bear is going to be considering consequences? The bear is going to be like, if I do this, the police, or my conscience, or my religion, or my family. There are all those thoughts that might, even the worst of men. For example, it was Ted Bundy, I believe, the serial killer. He went into a sorority house. He murdered 2 women, 2 girls. And he was on his way to, was it one? And he was on his way to murder another. And when he saw with a rosary on, she just prayed with her grandmother's rosary or something like that. And the rosary just, shook him and threw him off, so he ran. Do you think a rosary was going to throw off a bear? You think the bear break into the sorority house, start the feeding frenzy, and is going to say, hold up, rosary, my conscience feel a little invigiled. Like, that's not going to happen. That's not what happens. It's illogical. I'm missing the entire point. No, I'm not, CJ. Unless you could explain the point differently to me, because I'm speaking about the point as you were speaking there. The question is a hypothetical, but the hypothetical shows the lack of reasoning. It shows that even in the hypothetical situation, you are not able to properly reason through this.
I don't understand what's the point of the question in its hypothetical state, right? We hypothetically saying, well, okay, if you go into the woods, blah, 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 blah. But the reactions that people are giving off of it is like very real. And I feel I am a male sympathizer, as I was told previously. And I think it's not very good for us to have so much division between us, right? And when you have things like this, where it's like, oh well, these boys, these men are harming women, even though that's not really, it's not there behind them as they trying to make it seem. It's like probably like a very minor group. If even if we could call it a group, it's not that much. Like obviously, it is dangerous for women, but it's not as bad as we. Right? Probably I have it wrong, what it bad.
Yeah, you know.
Female friends. Like,
the thing, Ronnie, the thing is, people expect that there's a perfect alternative. So people compare reality with a perfect alternative. But there is no perfect alternative. So, okay, there are dangers and challenges in reality, in life. There are evil people. There are. But there's no perfect alternative to that. There's no utopia that you could say, well, this, you see, if we could have only had this perfection here, and then no, there is none like that. All we could do is try to see what possible slight changes we could make to try to make it as better as we can. Clay CJ Sober says, to understand, instead of men think on why they argue why women shouldn't choose the bear. CJ, I think you entered a bit late. I said this at the very beginning. I spoke about this, that there are many people who are saying that instead of men be upset that women chose the bear, understand why the woman chose the bear. And I say that's irrelevant. That could sound callous. But if you choose an illogical choice, it's not on me to figure out the choice to try and get to your logic, because it's illogical. It's like if we have children. If we go through the country and ask the children of the country, would they rather spend, just now CJ Sober, just now listen before you type. If you go through the country and ask children, would you rather grow up with your parents or grow up with a TikTok house? There's those TikTok houses with all the influencer, or grow up in a TikTok influencer castle. How many of those children are going to tell us they would rather grow up in the TikTok influencer castle than grow up with their parents? Is that no reason for all parents to self-introspect and wonder, why would children make this choice? Is it that we are so bad as parents? No, that's not reason. That's saying that the children are illogical. If you make an obviously illogical choice, it's not that we are supposed to be wondering about the logic there. It's illogical. It's on you to wonder why you are making an illogical choice. It's not on the men to wonder why the women are doing this. It's on the women to wonder why. Wait. You as a woman and women as a group, you all should take this moment to take pause and consider to yourself, why is it in the time in the world when we are safer than we have ever been in the history of being, and I don't think you can deny that, why is it in that time that somehow we believe the people who have protected us since time began are actually the people we are most at danger from? Like, that's a question for women, not a question for men. That's not for us to answer. I think I might know, but that's really on y'all. Why is it that in the time when you are the safest, you believe that you are most at danger from the people who are genetically, evolutionarily, historically, all of the ollies, your protectors? Up till now, they are your protectors. The reason the ocelots and caimans don't take over everything right now is they are men keeping nature at bay as it stands right now. Right now, The world over, the reason the bears aren't taking over and retaking the forests that they once had is because of men. So you need to ask yourself, why is it at this point in time the majority of safe, cuddled, wealthy, protected women somehow believe they are safer with an apex predator? Ask yourself that and see if it is that you weren't sold a narrative and you bought it wholesale and it's wrong. I am willing to wager if you could go to more typical tribes, older tribes that are less contacted, have less modern progress, and ask the females, the women, the mothers, the daughters in the Maasai tribe, where I wouldn't doubt there might be more abuse, where there are no domestic violence shelters, there's no domestic violence hotline, the police don't get involved in man and wife business because there are no police. I'm quite confident if you go back to some of those tribes and ask those women if they would choose their Maasai men over the lions, who do you think the Maasai women are going to see? Because they didn't lose that logic yet. They weren't. Go ahead, Ronnie.
Sorry, I was just saying, possibly it's not about losing the logic. I mean, they probably just have first-hand experience in seeing what a wild animal is capable of. Because most people who say all of this probably never saw a wild animal in real life, or they only saw them behind barricades or in enclosures. So you probably think, well, all she must can do is yawn at me.
No, but I don't think so. Because I think if you ask, for example, CJ Soba, who is right now defending it, she understands that a bear is a brutal, gruesome, violent animal. And she will still choose it. So it's not that she doesn't, it's not, Ronnie, that's the point I was saying at the beginning. I don't think the woman saying and choosing the bear don't understand that the bear is violent. It's to prove a point. It is purposefully illogical to prove a point. And that's what I'm saying. That's the problem there. That willing to jump off the edge of reason just to prove a point. Like, you need to dial that back and think about it a bit. And hey, we have real other news to talk about too, just by the way.
This will be my last thing. But the thing is, sometimes it's not even that, is to prove a point, right? So let me go back to the shark thing, right? Mm-hmm. It's not like I don't know it have sharks in the sea, but for a long time I used to swim out very far into the beach, right? And I could hardly swim properly, but I used to go really far. And it's not because I didn't think it don't have sharks, but now because of this thing that happened recently, you're not catching me past knee high. Sometimes it's just, you just think it can't happen because whatever. So probably, again, it's not even just proving a point. I think it's just that we so far removed from it. It's just like,
but then Ronnie, the far remove, I think the far remove, that point kind of makes it worse because if you're so far removed from it, you're so far removed from it because the men in your society by and large did that. So it's kind of ironic to be so far removed because the men in your society protected the society so well that you now think the men in your society are useless and are actually more a danger to the society than a help. Isn't that the irony upon ironies? You did your job so well that they think you aren't needed anymore. But hey, on the shark, the US, well not the US, sorry, Canada and UK put warning on Trinidad and Tobago over a shark. I find the outer place. We have 600,000 men in Trinidad and Tobago, and one shark. If the men worse than the bears, how you will warn people about a shark? One shark. Nah, all the men it have in this island worse than that. Oh. Canada, UK, 2 citizens don't swim in Trinidad and Tobago waters. Canada and the UK have issued travel advisories to their citizens, advising them against swimming in Trinidad and Tobago's coastal waters following the attack by a shark on a British tourist in Tobago on April 26th. This eventually led to 10 beaches being closed. The Travel Canada website said coastal waters can be dangerous. In certain areas, sharks pose a risk to swimmers, and I have a problem with that. I have a real problem. How you mean sharks pose a risk to swimmers? It was one shark. Like, if you're doing that, you have to put singular. Shark and past tense. Posed. Because them Tobago fishermen, at least they tried to make sure that it happen again. But I find they rather out of timing. One, I mean, not little, but one shark attack. One shark attack. This fella not even from here. And the Tobago boys done deal with him and all his cousins. They ride back for him. So, like, this was unnecessary. Totally unnecessary and uncalled for. Shark come out to play out a timing in we place, and now you all come to give all this talk. And you know they criticize Farley and they for the 10,000 bounty, and then they come and do this. You see, they really was supposed to wipe. Let me not say that. But the Tobago boys dealt with those sharks. I'm just saying, the worry about those sharks. Tolle says blaming an animal for doing what animals do. If you go back to the previous discussion. Blaming an animal. Yeah, I mean, well, vex. It's not like you're vexed with the animal, but you're not looking for it to do it again. And there's no mention of being very insulting. Exactly. They need to understand that we have a means for taking care of this issue. Like maybe in Australia, where those shark attacks are, they get those shark attacks and their hope is maybe they just kill the shark. But we have a real means. It's like, imagine if chickens became a problem. Like, imagine if we had some violent chicken. Like, you all know, if any of you all grew up a bit village, a bit country life, you know that some roosters, some cocks could get very out of hand. I'm just, in case you all didn't know, they say, the evolutionists say that chickens are descended from T-Rex, the Tyrannosaurus, the dinosaurs. And some of those roosters, you could kind of get the impression they have a memory of that business. They have a whole kind of T-Rex flavor. That the mama hens was runny. Mama hens, I understand why they vex. If you're a mama hen, you have to protect your chicks. You fly in to make sure that nobody ain't coming too close. That's what mama hens do. I understand that. But roosters, they just angry for nothing. There are some of them that are very problematic for no good reason. And a rooster's attacking ability, if you have fended off a hen with its chicks, and you haven't faced a rooster yet, you haven't really seen what a chicken could do. Those wild, and when I say wild, you know, it's somebody own it at some point in time, but basically they're wild. Walking around, wild roosters walking around with spurs long like this. And ready at a moment's notice to fly and aim those spurs at your inner regions. But yeah, imagine if you will, that chickens became a problem. That chickens started to get a little bigger. That we started to get like about a 30-pound chicken out there. And those 30-pound chickens killed one human. If we had a lot of 30-pound chickens, that became problematic. Well, that would not be very problematic. And I think that when Canada and the United Kingdom give their warnings about sharks in our waters, when they give the warning about sharks in our waters, it needs to come with the caveat that Trinbagonians have a culinary means of dealing with this problem should it become overbearing. Wendell says, like the blackbirds in Porterswin, that does be attacking when you're walking. But Wendell, if blackbirds were just twice as big, as it stands, it's diminishing returns. The amount of work it might take to catch one blackbird, and how much stew you get out of a blackbird? How much curry? By the time you throw it in the pot, is only the bone left. And the bone and all might be too flimsy. That blackbird lucky he isn't bigger. If he was bigger, it would not have been a pest any longer. You know, chickens could fly in trees. I wouldn't doubt if we left them be, there might be some roosters that get fast and fresh enough to fly out a tree and try and pick some people. Maybe there were some roosters that did it before, but they didn't do it for too long. We have a whole old wise proverb on that. I hear better cock than you crow, and they still end up in pot. I'll let you all know. I'll have you all know that. I think I want that one I want written in calligraphy and framed somewhere, because that's one of my favorite sayings. I hear better cock than you crow, but they still end up in pot. Maybe that's how we figured out it's good to stew. Exactly. One cock fly out a tree, pick somebody, and we figured out that chickens make a beautiful stew. Magnificent. Yard fowl included. Like I was watching, because I have some chickens, I'm minding some chickens right now, into that whole homesteading and farming business. The farm is going well. And I'm watching some chicken content, and some Americans talking about a problem. Someone posted a whole video. What do you do with mean roosters when you have a rooster inside of the hen house, and he's just picking everyone, and he would not get along with everyone? And I'm just smiling there in Trini. Oh, you don't know. And people in the comments are like, can you eat a rooster? Are those the kind of chickens you eat? Aren't they really tough? Isn't their meat a bit too gamey? And I'm like, Tolly says Maniku was an issue. We dealt with it. Joy says dogs have a more dangerous history than any animal you called, and women have them in houses and beds. Hey. Well, man is dog, eh? So, you know, you could be onto something, but there's a larger chicken called Black Giant. Pressure cooker do sell more in the US. Militant Rockstar, of course it sells, but they are just, some people just don't know. Some people just don't know. Jumping straight into the next story, something much more serious. And going down the line of the whole bear versus man and the gender wars back and all that regularly kicks up itself. This is an interesting one. And it's kind of scary to me. Custody battle ends in Privy Council. A father's 6-year battle for access to his children has ended with the Privy Council, with him receiving supervised visitation. In March, Lords Hodge, Stevens and Lady Rose dismissed the mother's application for permission to appeal a ruling of the Court of Appeal which upheld the orders issued by a family court judge in August 2022. So, in short, let me give the reasoning here. The couple divorced in 2019, with the mother and father separately applying for sole custody of the children. In a written ruling, the High Court dismissed the father's application and ordered supervised access because of an allegation raised by the mother. Men, you see how easy that's done? Allegation, and that's that. And in case you're wondering if the allegation had more to it, however, he held there was no conclusive evidence of the allegation, but refused unsupervised access. So there was no conclusive evidence of this allegation, but the allegation alone was enough to, 1, dismiss your sole custody request, and 2, not allow unsupervised access. So you cannot have unsupervised access. All of your access must be monitored with your children off of an allegation. And that wasn't enough, because mums appealed that ruling to the appeals court because she wanted them to have no access. The appeals court threw it out. Mums appealed that to the Privy Council for no access. Well, that goes without saying, Ronnie, but you know what's the irony in some of this? Sometimes you find out that both sides are being paid for by daddy's money. So, because of divorce settlement proceedings, it could be that daddy's money pays for both sides of this, and that's why it's very okay with mommy dragging this all the way to the Privy Council just to make sure he cannot see his children. You know, women prefer the bears than the men, but men, a bear might be more safe than some of these women. Someone willing to drag you to England, 6 years of court battle, so that you will not see your children. What? And I could already see, well, Ronnie says he should give up his rights so she can't ask for child maintenance. Like, those things sound spectacular when you see it online in the red pill universe, and men who already have bad relationships with women see it and like, yeah, I'd jam her for that, and that's going to stick up, and I get back at her. But if you're a man, as most normal men do, who legitimately loves their child, you legitimately love your child. You aren't going to court out of vindictiveness. You're going to court because you want to see your child. You don't care about the child maintenance because you don't mind paying, because you want to see your child. And, you know, I hear some of the defenders in some of these cases speaking like, you know, you don't know, this man might indeed be a monster. You don't know how much of a monster this man was. And that might be why the mother knows best. Mommy knows best. She knows why. The women know why they would choose the bear over the man. This mother knows why she would choose for her children to grow up without a father versus grow up with a man who obviously wants to spend time with them. Mother knows why she would choose that. Does she? Because if this man is so horrible that it is inconceivable for him to spend time with his children, how did you marry him? Like, you married this man, and then you're seeing the person that you chose to sleep next to night after night, hopefully initially till death do you part, but apparently it wasn't so. That choice was so horrible. And if your reading of people is so bad that you could have chosen to spend day and night with a man who is so horrible he should never be around children, then your ability to judge people's character is obviously lacking. So then why should we believe you now? You're obviously not a very good judge of character. Continuing on the line of bear versus man. And the men are the dangerous ones in society out there. Piako pensioner set on fire during robbery. Police are urging the public to be vigilant after a Piako woman was set on fire during a home invasion. On May 5th, a woman was at her home on Kelly Street, Piako, when two people, a man and a woman, not a man and a bear, a man and a woman, pretending to be lost hopeful tenants, called out to her. The 66-year-old woman walked to her front gate, where the woman in the front passenger seat of a black car came out and pulled out a gun, forcing the woman to open her gate. Once inside, the two suspects began to ransack the woman's house looking for valuables. As they demanded jewelry and cash after the woman told them she did not have any valuables, they physically assaulted her. The man threw a liquid on the woman and set her on fire. The woman began to scream and the suspects left in their car. Neighbors heard the woman scream and called the police. The woman was treated at the Arima General Hospital and later discharged. Rani, sometimes men have to give up and start over, then let their adult children come find them. That's something much easier said than done. Like, I can't even imagine that. I'm letting you know, like, the thought of that with my child, I would rather burn down everything. I'm just letting you know. And sometimes when you see men do the most and crash out, you wonder why. I am telling you as a man, filled with the masculine thoughts and reactions. The thought of someone telling me that my time with my child is going to stop now, and hopefully when she reaches 20 something, she reaches back out to me. That doesn't end well. That doesn't end well. That's not going to end well. At all, at all, at all. No way, no how. But yeah, that story and the pensioner. A woman and a man. Man and a woman. And I've heard you regularly hear of robberies like this where a man and a woman as a couple are doing the robbery. This is a pretty common one in Trinidad and Tobago. Some children understand and keep dad meet up private from mothers. Yeah. Now, jumping into another crime story, and we'll see an interesting bit on this year. You know, it comes interesting here because was it on the 4th or something of this month, we reached the 10-year anniversary of Dana Sitahal's murder, and they're yet to find to convict anyone over that. Ronnie's will said, but did they have to set the woman on fire? Why? I presume to force her to tell them where valuables are. Yeah, 10 years since she was murdered, Torres. I presume that's what it was for, as a threat. They threw the liquid on her and tell us where the valuables are, we'll set you on fire. And, Tanti, we not playing in a Tanti, where your money, where the jewelry, and da. And I suppose that's where the fire went. But yes, it's 10 years. And no convictions as yet. I've heard some people lamenting about that, about what it shows. And I mean, it's normal. That's what it shows. It shows the length of time our judiciary takes. If one of their own, they cannot expedite a case like that, that tells you the portion for everyone else. Hear this one. Hunt on for man accused of killing toddler. When I heard that story, I was like, wait, what? Another toddler got killed? What? Warrant issued 23 years ago. A High Court judge yesterday directed that inquiries be conducted into the status of a judge's warrant issued 23 years ago for the arrest of a man for the murder of his 18-month-old stepchild. The man was charged in April 1997 for the murder of his 18-month stepchild. The child was beaten to death. Two neighbors testified that they saw the man beating the child. However, the accused was discharged in August 2000. The then Director of Public Prosecution subsequently applied and was granted a judge's warrant in April 2001 for the man to be rearrested. And I guess he was never rearrested. You know what? You know what I wonder about this story, though? In pertaining to all that we were talking about for the night so far. I wonder, I remember that, Joy. I wonder, because this man here, who murdered his 18-month-old stepchild, I believe he would be worse than a bear. He would be one of those men, I would agree, if you were in a forest and baby murderer and bear probably go for the bear and hope it doesn't notice you and you run away. So this man is as bad as a bear or worse. I wonder if he has any child mothers since 2001. Oh, Daniel Knight, I'm curious. Do you think when they arrest him, he would have had women between 2001 and now? You know the women that say they would rather choose a bear than an average man? Or is it that the women are always choosing bears in the first place? Because if I were to put a bet down, I would bet baby killer here, who has a warrant for killing baby 23 years ago. I wouldn't doubt he has children in their teens. As in children made after he murdered his 18-month-old stepchild. As in women who knew this was a baby murderer and went with him. You all think so? And in that case, what does that say about the whole bear versus man conversation? Is it that? It's not that the men are so dangerous. But as Dr. Rowley said, some of you all been choosing bears all along. And like some people act like some of these things are so difficult to figure out. But you know, some men are different. Some men, you never know. You could never know, you know. Sometimes when you're first talking to them, they show you a whole different person. And you hear about it. And you hear that the man had a warrant for a baby murder before you met him. And they're like, well, you know, he was different when we met. No, he wasn't. No. Like, obviously this is not going to happen. But in theory, you feel like if you were in some moralistic monarchy where there's a supreme leader, and you find that man, any woman that was with that man since 2001, I am charging you as an accessory. And if you made a child with that man, I would charge you with child endangerment. Ronnie says we need a police certificate of character now to date. But police certificate of character, people is know those things, you know. You think people don't know the man who murdered his 18-month-old stepchild? You think that news isn't widely shared? What if he lied about what? How he's lying about that? He's saying that the police lie on him. He didn't really murder the child. Or are you talking about him being a strange man and moving into a small village in the back of somewhere, and he could have laid low and come back? So you meet a man who has no history. He just popped into existence 3 years ago, and you fall head over heels. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing suspicious about that. Brother didn't exist before COVID. Because even if he laid low, when he resurfaced, is he resurfacing with no connections? The man has no family, no friends, no old friends. And then you're going to see a man who's, when you talk to him, he says, nah, you ask him about his mother and father, well, you know me and them don't pulling it. You ask him about his brother and sister, well, you know me and them don't pulling it. You ask him about his cousins, well, most of them dead and the rest of them I don't talk to them. You ask him about his uncles, nah boy, them is wicked people. His aunts, nah, them don't like me boy. So nobody in your history likes you, and you going to go with that man? No, I want to know, how does a man murder his stepchild by a standpipe in a village, in a community, seen by villagers? How does he lay low good enough to come back to a woman and nobody knows? 2001 news was there and then because it wasn't online. Listen. In 2001, if I had an uncle who murdered his stepchild and was arrested for it and it made news, everyone in our family is going to know. When do you think 2001 was? we had oh gosh, that was Carla Fodringham days. Carla Fodringham on the 7 p.m. news. I know, Ronnie, I'm waiting. I'm just talking as your explanation comes in. Carla Fodringham would have spoken about that. Should have told us. We would have known. Or you're waiting to come up. And people read papers. Ronnie, explain to me, how does one murder their 18-month-old stepchild by a standpipe in front of community witnesses and lay low good enough to catch a woman after? Explain that to me, Ronnie.
Again. So, right, this is what I say, right? In 2001, you're reading your papers, right? The family at home, that with the name would obviously know, right? But if I read my papers, think on my way, probably 2 years later, somebody come to me, I might really know the person's name from 2001. And again, our archives are trash, right? So it's not to say like I cannot come back and be like, search a person and get it. Well, I mean, we can even search people in 2003, I don't know. But yeah, like in that way, he probably was living Tuna Puna and he gone Manzanella and live, you know, that kind of way?
Yeah. So Ronnie, let's go through this though. Let's go through this. He approaches you wherever he approaches you and you all start talking. Yes, you don't ask him about any of his family or friends?
Yes, of course, but like, yeah.
So he has no... Wait. You notice this grown man has no family or friends from before 2001. And that would not strike you as an immediate red flag?
Well, he's saying, like, his family died and he needed to move out the village to just get a new start.
And you believe that? You see, Ronnie, this is the point I'm making. This is the point I'm making, Ronnie. Nearly all the women who end up in those situations very well knew.
Just how weird. The reason I'm saying that, because I try to think, right? Thinking about it, like, no need to, I can't really, I'm not defending any man, I'm not defending anybody he was with, but when I think about it, right, for me, I don't know, I don't have family for people to come and say like, oh yeah, ting. So it could be the same thing with me here today, right? One of my friends that I meet, they'll be like, Lyman, they never meet none of my friends from Trinidad. See? So, you know,
Ronnie, wait though. But Ronnie, you and I aren't buddies like that. We are online acquaintances. And I know who your mother is. I've seen your mother on your social media profiles. You have spoken about family and etc. You speak about your grandparents we see the connections and we can find and trace the connections. And you see, this is the problem. If we're talking women to men and men to women is not the same thing that we consider. For a man, you're talking to a woman and certain things red flaggish, but you might ignore some because some men too thirsty in the first place. But alright, as a man, the direct danger isn't the same. But as a woman, we're talking about women who would say they prefer walk through the forest with a bear. Okay. You're supposed to be real cautious about men. And you're so cautious about men. But a man who has no family and friends from before 2 years ago You run into him with open arms. How does that work? To me, even if he tells the story that all his family dead and his friends desert him and he had to leave the village because he just couldn't take it anymore, that in and of itself should be a red flag. That in and of itself should be a red flag. But the irony is, I say that story and I could imagine that story being attractive to some women.
I don't think so.
Hear this, Ronnie. Hear this. She asks about my family. Nah, Gil. All my family passing. It's like, at the end of the day, I kind of grew up by myself, you know. As a man, I had to see about myself from a young age now. I didn't have nobody really checking for me and thing. And all them people in that village and thing where I grew up after my family dead, none of them really look after me. You know, people heartless already now. So after a while I recognize, you know, this really makes sense. I just kind of just cut it, you know, when people say they cut you and you just lock them off. That's how I do it. I lock them off cold. And I say I go and move out here and start over fresh now. So as a man, I just looking for a fresh new start. Me looking for nothing to carry me back. So, you understand? You ain't seen some girls falling for that, Ronnie?
Fair enough. Yeah.
That sad story, roping them in for sure. And that is the problem. That is why y'all think the bear safer. Because you can't tell when a bear talking to you and when a normal man talking to you. That is the problem. Y'all be talking to bears and don't even know it. You're not seeing all them sharp teeth grinning. Right through. And the bearish behavior, you thinking, whoo, you're swooning over that bear behavior. He growl and you're like, ooh. That's the problem. The problem is the red flags. They think the red flags are landing beacons. The guys at the airport waving you where to land. They think that's what red flags are. Running into the red flags. We just watched it there. This guy could have murdered his 18-month-old stepchild. And very likely end up with someone else after. Joe says one too many children have been killed by their step-parents in this country and they're still not learning. Joe, that's not just this country.
Every country.
Step-parents, the statistics, I always try to... I have to get back the exact number. But I think it's over 100 times. Not 100%. Because 100% is just 2 times. Wow, Aquaria Shorty. That might actually also be true, which would be scarier. But that is very possible also. Very, very possible. And the mums could be hiding him from the police all these years too. I wouldn't doubt that. I wouldn't doubt that at all. But yes, the statistics on step parents and abuse is through the roof. And I was reading somewhere that someone was theorizing, you know, the level of negatives we see from single mother homes compared to single father homes. And a lot of the reason for that has to do with the step parent effect. Not just the mother herself and her ability. It's not 150%. I know it's not a percent, it's a times. Something 100 times. But yeah, the step parent effect where mother, one, I think on mother's side, they are more likely to re-engage a relationship than fathers. Statistically, the mother is more likely to re-engage a relationship. And that shouldn't be something impossible to see because women by and large find it easier to find a relationship in the first place. So just the probability of starting one more faster and faster. And then 2, the fact is on the woman's side, there's a stepfather, while on the man's side, there's a stepmother. And those two don't have the same level of danger. Because I am one very willing to admit, the relative danger from a man versus a woman is not nearly the same. Joy says the police too have questions to answer as the neighbors' reports were not pursued seriously. Well, you see, it's not just the police, Joy, because as far as the story goes, the police arrested him. But it seemed like the DPP didn't give the instructions on what to charge him with in time. So he had to be released until those instructions came. Remember, we had an incident like that with the Pennywise shooting, I believe. I think the Pennywise shooting had something like that, where they arrested some guys and then released them, and after they released them, a day after, they get the warrant that they're what they're supposed to be charged with or something like that, and now they have to go and do a manhunt to go looking for them. So I'm sure the police would say that's not only on them, that it's an issue with the judiciary and the coordination between the judiciary and the police service. I think that's where that issue would be significantly lacking. Let me jump in a land bacchanal story now. A land bacchanal in Trinidad. And this story, it created a reaction on that little insane platform they call X. And I found the reaction, the statement, I found it curious. And I'd like to see what the chat would have to say about that. What the chat's view would be on something like this. All right, let's see that story if we can pull it up. Court orders Kunupia Doubles vendors to vacate family home. You have great memory of social events. Yeah. Listen, when I was like primary school age, my memory was insane. It actually kinda...
Talking to Joy.
Court orders Kunupia Doubles vendors to vacate family home. A High Court judge has ordered two sisters to vacate the family's home in Kunupia by October 31st after the court ruled in favor of their uncle over a property dispute. On May 3rd, Justice Westmin James ordered two sisters to vacate the family home at Gurdine Lane off Chin Chin Road. The sisters are doubles vendors. The court also ordered them to remove her wooden structure from the compound. The two defendants were also prohibited from denying the claimant and the beneficiaries entry into and upon the property. The court also granted an injunction restraining the defendants from physically and or verbally assaulting or harassing their uncle. They were also debarred from erecting any structure upon the lands of the family home. The court also debarred the sisters from interfering with the design layout of entrances and exits to the home. The court documents showed that the claimant is the legal personal representative of the estate of his deceased mother. The deceased, the mother, had 11 children, each entitled to an equal or 1/11th share in the family home. So mums had 11 children. When mums was sharing it up, she said everybody gets a piece. Everybody gets a piece. 1/11th to each. The claimant, which is one of her sons, and other relatives lived in the home. He eventually migrated in 2002 to the US. According to the claimant's case, the defendant's mother... So, the defendant is a child of mommy who owned the house. The two ladies, the two doubles vendors, would be granddaughters of owner of the home. Their mother would have had a 1/11th stake in the home. And what happened is their mother stayed in the home. They said they stayed with their mother in the home. And when the mother died, their mother, who was a child of the original owner, when she died, they decided, well, it's my house now. I was living there. Our mommy died. Uncle and auntie, get out. This is ours now. The defendants contended that they were always occupying the home, and when their mother died, they continued living there. Their uncle and his siblings were not, and as such, the two felt they were entitled to have the home. The claimant and all his siblings have been denied entry and access to the family home since Gupta's death. So, your mom's is 1/11th owner of this home. You come and living with moms in the house. Moms die. Now, the other aunts and uncles, other places in the world, moms die, you all there. You decide, well, since mom died, nobody come back. Oh gosh. Nobody must come back.
This is why parents must leave the house to one person. You want to say the first child, the last child, but leave it to one.
But Ronnie.
This 1/11 thing, what is that?
But Ronnie, it wasn't the children had the bacchanal, it's the grandchildren.
I know it's the grandchildren, but if the mother was the one, well, she had the right to the house straight, then the girls have never had a house. But the only thing is, them would have to fight each other when one of them dead, or you understand how this goes.
It's 1/11th. You get 1/11th. You get to stay. You get to come and go. Maybe it's not yours. But Ronnie, your statement is similar to the response I saw on X. Somebody responding to this. I need big people to realize that you can't expect people to share house or land. Leaving children with equal parts in property is a recipe for disaster. If it's a house, it needs to be sold. If it's land, you need to partition that ish before you go. I guess you believe something like that, Ronnie. I wholesale disagree. And I think the lady who said this was a black woman. And I think many black people believe like this. And I think that's why many black people to this day keep talking about wanting and wishing that they could build up their generational wealth. But how are you going to build up generational wealth if the wealth cannot pass through from generation to the other?
And to make only the amount of children of houses they have.
No. That's not necessary. What's necessary is to have a culture that understands how to build familial wealth. And understanding this, you understand that there would be bacchanal sometimes. Yes, occasionally there's a court case. Yes. But that's better than all of us, all the grandchildren, constantly sitting down and saying, you know, we grandfather used to own that land, and you know that was grandma land, and you know grandpa used to own that, and they used to, and all of the black millennials keep saying that. All where their grandparents used to own. And then you have advice like this, where after you go through your life and you build up your wealth, what you give to your children is you sell the actual wealth. You sell it and give them cash that's going to disappear in a year. And you think that's how you pass down inheritance?
I don't really agree with selling. I think I'm more lean on the giving one child it, because, you know, I understand what you're saying, but then in situations where the children can't agree, it just end up being so bad. Like, I think you just let her know, well.
And this, you see, Ronnie, this is similar to a lot of the issues we were speaking about last week. Because there are some bad outcomes, doesn't mean you throw away the whole thing. Okay, if you have a generation where they are indisciplined, yes, they are going to fight over the inheritance. But what would you rather? They have no inheritance to fight over? So, okay, they still hate each other, but now they're destitute. They could hate each other from their rental apartments. Or maybe they could hate each other from the apartments in the house that their parents left for them. And there are many homes like this. There are many properties like this. I know of a property where the family put it into a business holding account, and then they started renting it out so that none of the siblings live in the family property anymore, but they all have a stake in it. So the company that they have a stake in would improve it and rent it out, versus sell it. And they would have gotten probably a couple $1,000s in 1990 something that they would have spent through by now. And now they would be driving past and saying, hey, 30 years ago, your grandma used to live in that house, If you know, that annoys me. Because you hear it constantly. You hear it constantly.
I think I do things differently because
Because you're a woman.
No, because I'm an only child. So basically, it doesn't matter. But I understand what you're saying, and I saw it already. I saw it several times. Several of my friends' parents died, and I see how it is be real messy and nasty. And the only person who I see it work out for was my best friend. But she was an only child too, so but everybody else, siblings, stopped talking to siblings. And had one, she was a police officer, and she said threatening her siblings. Oh, she's have fire. She's actually fireman. So they'll come around. And all kind of thing. They went and take all the restraining order on the siblings, so the siblings couldn't even come in the house. You understand? So them kind of thing is get better. And the thing is, they grew up close. So this person is saying if you raise your children right, however, they grew up real close, they used to look out for one another, blah, blah, blah. As soon as the mother closed she eye, everybody know who else is who.
Ronnie, I don't fully buy into those kind of things. Then they didn't really grow up close. Like, I hate Ronnie. I really hate this. And I hear it regularly as an excuse given online. I hate the kind of attitude, like, you never know what could happen, You could do all the right things, and it could still go bad, You just make the child, but you don't make them mine, And all of the people with the worst children always saying that, but the people who have children doing the best things, for some strange reason, they believe they could make their children's minds, and they could. Some strange way. You have all these wealthy families leaving everything in a holding account, millions of dollars, and they somehow their children are able to work through it.
Well, probably that's what needs to be done. Probably the parent, before they die, need to do something like that. Because the children are doing it so better, I have.
But Ronnie, what I'm telling you is you're focusing on a negative group, on a negative sample. There are many people who have done that successfully.
I'm sure.
And in other words, like how else do you pass on a business? So Bagwan Singh's business, how is it still running? And you know that she didn't start the hardware, her father started the hardware. And it's running again. After her father died, it still ran. After she died, it's still running. Versus you sell off everything. Like that, to me, that songs, I know that's not necessarily what you're saying, but I'm purposefully exaggerating it a bit to give the extreme on that. You atomize every generation. Every generation you pull, it's like the grape growing in a bunch, nice and together. And every generation, you have to pluck them apart and hopefully allow them to have to grow on their own separately again. No, we are meant to have that togetherness. We are born into families. I think that should have some consequence. And I think, personally, regularly you hear many black people lament about the lack in black culture and the different missing pieces in black culture. I think that right there is a major piece. The idea that your child, your daughter reaches 16, gives a little trouble and you kick out the house. What kind of mad people behavior is that? Your son reach an age and you start to tell him, hey, you gotta go and find your own place, you know. You can't live in my house forever, you know. You feel you're getting this house. I've heard some people talk about me getting them nothing, and when them rich, when them get big, them had to go out there and get it on their own, just like I had to get it, you know. What? Mad people behavior. Anonymous says people feel it impossible, but I can work and I've seen it. It can work and I've seen it work. You just have to start instill certain things from early, correct? A wise man leaves an inheritance unto his children's children. I agree, and that's the intention. The intention is to leave that inheritance, not to just pass through the earth and leave the children alone there by the time you leave. No, leave them with something, man, that hopefully makes their starting point a lot more progress than yours. Good night, Quasi Andrews. Good night, sir. Alright, people, that's all I have for now. There are many more news stories. You know, there are always more news stories to talk about, but that's all we're covering tonight, folks. 11:27. I'll see you guys again tomorrow for the next Mindful Live, starting around that 9:30 p.m. time. Until then, people, hold it down. My father used to say he will leave the house to the church when I get him vexed. But you know, that was a common thing. For example, the Roman Catholic Church, for example, got a lot of resources by little old ladies bequeathing everything to them after they pass. It was a very common thing. All right, people, peace out. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Until then, I hope you're educated, informed, and entertained. Stay good, stay safe, stay inside, outside, a little sketchy. I hear a drive-by in Tobago, Rani. What's going on? Bago too?
Boy, it's getting bad.
What's this?
A few people in the hospital for that. That's crazy. Like, Tobago again. But that's why, you know why that thing has happened? When you allow drugs into your society. That's why that thing has happened. So,
it's drugs.
But I think of course it's drugs. It's always drugs. If it's not drugs, you're fighting for turf to sell the drugs. If it's not turf to fighting for to sell the drugs, it's because somebody owing somebody drug money.
Yep.
So it's
plenty owing. But generally, a drive-by that pick up 8 people, that is not really owing. That is they want to clear out a block or something. Somebody selling that they don't want to sell there and they want him to stop selling.
Yeah, exactly.
But so how much people is buy drugs in Tobago? The tourists is real buy or what?
Because I don't understand. If it's like marijuana, right? Which is like basic. That's a basic thing in Tobago. Everybody have marijuana. I don't see why you need to shut up anybody for marijuana. Unless it's not marijuana.
Well, usually, from my understanding, a lot of the violence doesn't really track with marijuana per se. The weed trade isn't the most violent. Not that it doesn't bring violence, but it isn't generally the most violent. What was with the big plane and American helicopter? Well, the big plane, I believe they said that brought in some oil pipes That's a transport plane, the biggest civilian transport plane that brought in, I think, some oil pipelines for someone in the oil and gas industry. The big helicopters, the attack helicopters, I'm not 100% certain, but I believe the Delaware National Guard is currently in Trinidad and Tobago, so I wouldn't be surprised if if those have something to do with each other. The Delaware National Guard is the group that is partnered with our TTPS. I don't know if you all remember me speaking about that when we spoke about them being involved in the whole gender studies and DEI and all of that. And we received an award. Our police service, Minister Hines, took the award because of that partner program with the Delaware National Guard, etc., etc. So they're currently in Trinidad. No, for something we did, some amount of progress we made. I don't know if it was something on the gender front. I don't know, but something. I can't remember what exactly.
Okay, but yes, the white oil drugs are very big because tourists come and it's leisure. So the white lady gets play in Tobago, but apparently locals I pick up on that. So,
I find Tobago too small. Like Tobago too small to be. How you mean somebody do a drive by? How you escaping and nobody you see this car screeching off? Tobago had two roads. It's two major roads.
They stole somebody's car. So it didn't matter which car they used.
Yeah, but you have to switch cars at some point. Anyway, I just find Tobago too small. My personal feeling is Tobago too small for that kind of violence. If you tell me somebody sneak up on somebody behind a tree and stab them or something, okay, fine. But a drive by and pick up 8 people? Nah, man, nah.
I sure everybody know.
Yeah. That is one of those things. I wouldn't doubt if Ronnie speak off of the internet too. She might know much more and all. I wouldn't doubt that. I feel people. That is one of those things. You go into the area and they tell you everybody. Everybody tell you, nah, that is so and so and so and so. Do it because so and so. And what they wanted was for he to do and so and so. And they don't call him and tell him X, right? Because no way that's happening without everybody knowing. No way. Tobago too small. All right. I really go on.
Good night.
Bye. The shark roll back for them.